In this video I'm going to build 6 custom LEGO Star Wars tanks for different factions from the Star Wars universe. Additional challenge is that each tank must fit at least one crew member and be in LEGO minifigure scale. Let's start with the Imperial heavy tank, using these hover tank pilots as the crew. I started with this mostly technic assembly based on a great LEGO AT-AP from 2019. Then I added 2 seats for the pilots, 2 control panels on both sides, plus an additional central panel with screens and buttons, for our 2 pilots which have a designated place. Next I built a foundation segment with 2 sets of tracks using Technic and plates. I also included Technic components on each side to support the upper armor later. For the lower front I created this simple assembly, and connected the 2 main segments into a single structure. Then I built this front component, reinforced it with extra armor plating and finished it off with a lower extension. Let's attach it to the Technic support structure. For the side armor I made this component also based on the AT-AP set, but more tiled off. I added a hatch with the Imperial symbol, some ventilation systems around the back, and a track cover attached to the exposed clips, which I mirrored for the opposite side. It actually turned into a little heart, a small thank you for watching my videos. After attaching side armor panels off camera, it was quite tricky. Let's cover the back tracks with protective panels as well. Look at this really cool interior here, as it might be not easy to show it later. Next I added a small component to mount an opening and closing upper hatch, for which I made a simple design. At the back I created a section with exposed studs, and I did the same thing for the side panels on both sides of the tank. Let's use these studs to attach this armored panel, which connects to a platform holding twin automatic cannons for extra side protection and firepower. I attached it to the previously made panel and I mirrored that design for the other side. At the back I built a clean panel and attached it to the remaining studs. The tank looks solid already, but something is missing. We need a turret. So I built a compact base, added a rounded slope section, reinforced it with side armor and finally mounted the primary cannons. The first of 6 tanks is ready and we are off to a great start with this heavy Imperial tank that turned out awesome. I really like the sharp angles and layered armor this build has. Additionally, it's packed with a lot of firepower, which will give it even a bigger advantage. The primary cannons have a great range of motion, the crew has a good access to the tank, and the tracks work together smoothly. Next up is a light tank for the droid army, and I'm using a droid pilot as the crew. I started with this bracket assembly, for which I added the tracks on both sides. Then I made these 2 simple components to reinforce the design, and I also placed the droid pilot holding a computer panel. Next I grabbed this really cool piece, for which I made a connector so I can attach it together on the side, and another one to help with stability. On top I'm going to add this section with a printed red visor, and I will finish it off with mirrored rounded piece. After that I can attach it to the rest of the build made so far. For the back of the tank I made this assembly and added a lower section to it. Then I attached it to the tank. I strengthened the connection of front and back sections using 1x8 tiles on the sides. Next I built this component for the side of the tank with a nice symbol, and I mirrored it for the other side. After that I built a little section for top where I will mount the turret, with 2 antennas attached to the rear and the main gun at the front. It easily attaches to the jumper plate on top. I really like how cool this turned out to be. This light tank fits perfectly within Droid Army aesthetic with its nice dark blue, light grey and dark grey color scheme. It rolls smoothly even on a flat surface, the turret rotates 360 degrees and there is easy access to the droid pilot inside. Let's build the next light tank, this time for the Rebel Alliance, and I'm using these Rebel pilots as the crew. I started with this light grey assembly, then added a dark grey section to it and reinforced it with inner support segment. On the side I added a section with exposed studs and attached a white stripe to it. For the back I built this simple section with vents. Then I added a 2x2 curved slope to continue the white stripe, and I filled in the gaps with some corner plates. Next I'm going to place 1 Rebel pilot into the tank and close it off nicely with a trans-clear dome piece. At the front I will add this armored section which connects to the exposed studs. I also built these smaller cannons and I will attach them to the jumper plates at the front. The main weapon is this longer gun, connected by the rounded extension on the side. In the meantime I built this foundation where I added brackets at the front for the connection points, and rounded off the design using some curved slopes. To the exposed studs, I attached 2 more brackets, which will let me add these rounded components, creating a seamless color transition on top. Next, I grabbed this slope element with awesome rebel symbol, which I will attach in the center near the rounded section. Underneath, I added the suspension on both sides, then I attached the rubber tracks. Finally, I built this simple assembly that will go at the back of the upper section, that fits nicely into the prepared connection points. The third of 6 tanks is completed, and this one is really bulky for a light tank. But that was the intention, as I think in the early days of the Rebel Alliance, they gathered any equipment they could find. So getting a good driving vehicle and just adding a cannon on the side was probably the way to go. Let's build our first medium tank, this time for the First Order, and I'm using this First Order driver as the crew. I started with a simple foundation where I added side panels with vents and transblue control panel on both sides. Then I made this assembly with tracks that I attach to the corner of the main section, and I repeat this step for the opposite side, as well as for the front of the tank. Now let's build protection covers for the tracks using a side building technique with smaller bar pieces. Next I added this section using clips on the side, and on the other side I used a larger armored panel, also connected with clips. Let's attach it over the tracks, and I repeat that on the left side. I mirrored protective armored covers and connected them at the back of the tank. At the front I attached a simple component which I reinforced with a plate and tile. Let's place our First Order driver in the prepared spot. On top I want to have this panel that will be at an angle, and to do so I built this segment that will connect with exposed clips. To reinforce it, I made this section with an additional computer screen for the driver, connected by using jumper plates on top, creating a compact design without any gaps. I also built this element with vents that will nicely fit within the frame of the previous section. Let's connect everything together with the main component, and let's add this cool section at the lower back. Next I built this longer cannon which I duplicated and added both of them to the simple turret foundation. At the back I added a small section to connect 2 cannons together, and then placed the turret on top of the tank. I really like the unique look of this medium tank, especially the low silhouette and compact design, paired with a great firepower and nice armor. It's awesome that protective covers don't interfere with smooth roll of the tracks, and the cannons have a great range of motion. I also really like this First Order symbol at the front, and nicely compact interior space which is surprisingly easily accessible. Next on the list is a light tank for the Resistance, for which I'll use this Resistance pilot as the crew. I started with a simple foundation segment to which I added upper suspension at the front. Next I placed a section with brackets so I can attach side panels later. I also added computer panel in the middle. After that I attached blue stripe, which is characteristic for the Resistance style. Then I reinforced the connection with another blue section and added some rounded elements at the front. Finally I nicely finished it off with a larger segment. After that I built side panels for both sides, and even added a smaller section to reinforce the overall structure. Let's place our Resistance pilot into prepared seat, and attach these smaller cannons on each side of the tank. In the meantime I built this component with tiny engine details, to which I attached armor sections for the sides as well as some ventilation features. I connected all components together and added the tracks on the suspension on both sides. This is such a fun little tank. Its primary role is recon, as it's very fast and maneuverable, which is perfect for dangerous scouting missions in enemy territory. Thanks to its low profile it wouldn't be easily detectable, even on sensors. And yes, it rolls very nicely. The final build on the list is a Heavy Republic tank, and I'm using these clone gunners as the crew. I started with the foundation assembly, which I extended with additional front section. I used this Technic section based on the epic clone turbo tank from 2010, which I'm going to use as a base for my tank design. On top I attached a simple section with 2 seats for the pilots and reinforced it with slope base section. Since the pilots need something to steer the tank, I added 2 control panels in front of the seats, along with this 2x3 tile featuring a cool sticker in the middle. Let's place the clone gunners into prepared spots. Next I built this big component and attached it at the back of the previous segment. I also made these Technic sections so I can attach side panels later. In the meantime I built this armored front panel and attached additional armor plating on the bottom. I used clips to connect it to the rest of the build. Using clone turbo tank design I made this side panel, added extra protection at the bottom and attached the section with lights on the side. Then I mirrored this design and attached both side panels using exposed clips from the Technic beam. Next I built the upper section with a seamless dark red line for a nicer color accent. I also made this big hatch with the Republic symbol, which I connected using clips from the previous section. For the side I made this small panel as an additional protection for the tracks, which I mirrored to the other side. Every heavy tank needs a solid firepower, so let's attach these side cannons, one on each side. I also built this big section with some vents and machinery, which I'll attach at the back of the tank. It's time for the main turret, for which I used a similar design to the Imperial heavy tank, but I modified the assembly for the main cannon, so it gives the tank its own unique look. This turned out great. I like the familiar look thanks to basing this design on the clone turbo tank, while still giving it distinctive features to create a whole unique design. Like every previous tank, it rolls very smoothly and there is a great and easy access to the interior space and the crew. So which tank was your favorite? If you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to check out the next one, visible on the screen. See you soon!